in the 17 category, for me, I see that to be more of a defect, which sort of says that you are not qualified to marry, but you qualify to have sex.
Hmm.
Yes. Because if somebody have an affair with somebody who is 17 years, the person is not committing defilement.
Wow.
You get it? If this 17-year-old girl consents to the to the sex, it is not defilement.
But she's
However, this
not.
17-year-old girl cannot consent to marry because consent to marry is 18 years and above. We encourage people not to act on their feelings, to
Mhm.
have actual affair with children. If you
Hmm.
have that, penchant or inclination or propensity, then you need to seek assistance so
Mhm.
that you'll be delivered
Yeah.
from such a condition. But this young lady alleged that the father actually slept with her. And I was called upon to represent the father. So we went to court. The man actually tells me that, look, I did not and couldn't, because even at the time, he was having catheter. He was actually putting on catheter. Urinating was even a challenge. And I requested for the medical report on his condition. And when I got it, went to court, I told the judge that, look, my client couldn't.
Welcome back, viewers. I have learned so much in the few episodes that we have done regarding pedophilia, incest, and the legal aspect of it. I believe you are taking notes. This note will come in handy when you need help for someone you know, and also if you are a victim, you want to seek justice and you want to seek support. So we continue to create awareness and education. The reason why we're shooting this episode is not for you to go out there and accuse people, but it's providing the guidelines you need, the resources that are available, and how to go about seeking help. So we continue again as we delve deep into pedophilia now and also combine it with incest. What are the laws that are available in Ghana? With me is our church elder or lawyer Robert Suma. You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Monique. How are you?
By His grace, I'm good. Thank God.
Thank-
Yeah, so we wanted to educate the people on the importance of knowing the laws that are available in Ghana on the incest.
All right. Thank you very much. So, in fact, the main um, law that regulates or sort of governs insects is the Criminal Offences Act,
Okay.
particularly Section 105. And apart from the Criminal Offences Act, in fact, the Criminal Offences Act creates the offense of incest by imposing sanction for committing such an offense on both the one interesting aspect of this incest is that both parties are liable for the offense. It is not just one-sided,
Mm,
and so the regulatory legal instrument is the what do you call it? The Criminal Offences Act. Then, apart from this law, we also have the Children's Act. The Children's Act is very specific in terms of offenses that are committed against children. And the word that for me is very important for us to note in that regard is the best interest of children. Anything that you commit against the best interest of a child is an offense.
all right.
However, the criminal aspect of it is always referable to the Criminal Offences Act.
All right.
So these acts moves together. Then
Mm,
we go to the Domestic Violence Act. This particular act was actually promulgated to ensure that we have mechanisms, we have structures in place for the implementation of, um, or having for people to have access to the justice system
mhm.
in terms of its practicality. It is not every body who would be interested in going to court and then pursue the criminal trial procedures under the Criminal Offences Act. Under the Criminal Offences Act, you lodge a complaint to the police, the offender is arrested, arraigned before the court, convicted, sentenced, and you, the victim, you go home and sleep without any benefit.
Mm.
The worst will be for him to be fined, and this fine is paid into the consolidated fund of the country.
Okay.
So it is not tilted towards benefiting the victim. However, if you go under the Domestic Violence Act, it actually provides a remedy where you are able to get support even if you don't have the money
Mm-hmm.
to access the justice system.
Mm-hmm.
You get the emotional support because under the act there is a fund that actually provides for psychological and other training for these victims.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that for purpose of our discussions, our listeners or viewers should know that we now have laws that are tilted towards benefiting individuals who have suffered some sort of misfortune as a result of some of these incidents.
All
So I
right.
can readily mention these three acts.
All right.
Of course, apart from the main constitution of Ghana.
Mm-hmm.
Under the constitution of Ghana, we have provisions that provide for the interest of the child.
The interest of the child
Yes.
as well under the constitution. All right, that's good to know. Thank you very much. Does it include victims of pedophilia as well?
Well, so the whole structure of our laws is not so specific on the mentioning of pedophilia,
All right.
but it provides for victims of rape, especially defilements. Under the Criminal Offences Act, Section 101 talks about defilement. When you have an affair of a person who is below 16 years, then it constitutes defilement. Now, the segmentation under the Criminal Offences Act is this. If the person is below 16 years,
Mm-hmm.
it is defilement.
All
So
right.
16 years, 15, 13, up to
Yeah.
one year, defilement. And for our discussion, yes, we can discuss the topic under these sections.
All right. All right.
However, if the person is above 16 years,
Mm-hmm.
the law is saying that if you are 18 years, you can marry. You have the consent. You can consent to marry. If you are 17 years, there is that middle ground. 17 years, you are not qualified to give consent to marry. And if somebody have an affair with you, it also is not defilement because you are more than 16 years. So there is a middle ground in between 16 and below and 18 and above.
So you in this 17 category.
Yes. In the 17 category, for me, I see that to be more of a defect, which sort of says that you are not qualified to marry, but you qualify to have sex. Yes. Because if somebody have an affair with somebody who is 17 years, the person is not committing defilement.
Wow.
You get it? If this 17-year-old girl consents to the marriage, to the sex, it is not defilement.
But
However,
she's
this
not.
17-year-old girl cannot consent to marry because consent to marry is 18 years and above. So then the law creates sort of a lacuna where people, that is why we now have a lot of teenage pregnancies, increasing. Because for me, this is actually a lacuna within 16 below, 18 above for people to enjoy.
Freedom to do whatever they have to do. And legally, they can go scot-free.
If with consent.
Wow.
If with consent, you've not defiled, but you cannot marry. Meaning that the person is pregnant, 17 years, he cannot marry. The boy who put her in that condition cannot be convicted for defilement.
Wow.
Yes, that is the current situation of the law. And let me take the opportunity to, just for purpose of education, it is not to create sort of enlightenment to our young guys to misbehave within that range, but for policymakers to look at it, and for us as parents to also ensure that our wards, or especially our daughters, are actually put under control,
Yes,
because
it's so
the
true.
protection is so much not available within that range.
Yeah, it's so true.
Yes.
It's so true. So we're talking about people seeking justice.
Yes.
And sometimes we know in certain cases we see people accusing people falsely when it comes to especially pedophilia.
Yes.
Why is it then important that people are aware that accusing people falsely has also legal implications?
Yeah. Okay. Now, with the pedophilia, as a legal person, I always will hasten slowly in concluding that this particular offense can actually be or named as pedophilia. The reason is that um, under the law, it is only a certified professional who can only conclude after examination that this person um, is actually within that category. Me sitting here, I cannot look at somebody's face and just conclude that he falls under the range of pedophilia and that his act constitutes an offense or whatsoever. But what is important is that within the law, the element of consent is very important. So that if, as I mentioned in one of our discussions, that if the person is even 16 years and he or she consents, don't take that consent, because in law, um, he or she is incapable of consenting. The law itself fixed that particular norm that once you are not 16 years and above, you are incapable of consenting. So if this 16-year-old girl now accuses the father that yes, he slept with me, the law is that the burden of proving will be on the prosecution, that is the complainant, in this case, this young lady. So you cannot just put a crime on somebody and just go scot-free. Now, how do you prove it? You have to prove penetration. You have to prove that either visuals. If you have, one of the difficult offenses to prove is actually the offense of defilement and rape, and that if you are not able to have cameras or pictorial view of the offense, if the person is not caught in the act, then it becomes very difficult. Of course, we can use medical examinations, to prove all that. So it is just not you mentioning it, but there is a burden on the person who is alleging the commission of the offense to prove that indeed the person committed. And if it is proved otherwise, there is no law which says that the complainant who alleged and couldn't prove that should be convicted.
Okay.
So to answer your question, I don't see that there is any offense.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Okay.
It is just that she is not able to discharge her burden of proving the commission of the offense.
So that means then if it's a false one, then the person who is falsely accused has got a tag now on their head.
Yes. Yes. And you see, I did one case in one of our circuit courts here in Accra. And actually, it is within the circles of the church, unfortunately. And this young lady alleged that the father actually slept with her. And I was called upon to represent the father. So we went to court. The man actually tells me that, look, I did not and couldn't, because even at the time, he was having catheter. He was actually putting on catheter. Urinating was even a challenge. And I requested for the medical report on his condition. And when I got it, went to court, I told the judge that, look, my client couldn't have committed such an offense. And this is the medical report. And right now, and the judge said, okay, let's go to my chambers. We walked in there. The man, pull down and the judge examined and realized that no. So the young girl was put in the witness box in the judge chambers, and we were questioning, we were trying to find out.
Why?
Lo and behold, it is actually the mother. I think the mother and the father are not living together. They were actually having challenges, and the mother is actually influencing this child, this daughter, to put such an offense on the man so that he is imprisoned, then she will have her liberty. This is life story which I represented in court. So we don't take it lightly. There is a need for investigation and then a thorough one, of course. Proving an offense is proving beyond reasonable doubt. And when you are proving beyond reasonable doubt, you prove the mindset and the act. The mere fact that the person, committed the act is not conclusive of liability or commission of the act. But the law, in terms of criminal liability, would have to also go into the mind. That is what we call the mens rea. So there is actually a higher burden to discharge.
Just imagine this man now, if people get to know about it, how he will be perceived within the church, in the community, and how children playing around that area, people will say, you have nothing to do with this kind of person. And resources that could have been diverted to something else have been diverted to investigate and to go to court. I think this kind of accusation hampers lawyers fighting for justice for victims, because it comes to a point now that, like you just proven, explain to us the burden of proof now on the victim. Because if you have organizations who are working with victims in communities, or if we have the local culture, how we deal with them in our communities here in Africa, it will be difficult now for somebody within that community, even if they are a true victim, to come out, or even if they do, how will they trust them now? Because we have issues of people accusing people falsely. So who is a mandatory reporter?
Well, so under the Domestic Violence Act, which is for me the basic act which actually implements all the other acts, any person with the required information, it is not just hearsay. Let's say you witnessed the commission of the offense. You get it? So once you witnessed and you are a material witness, you can positively attest to the fact of the commission because of your presence in the city, in the place where the offense took place. Then you are mandated by law to report.
Okay.
Now we talk about the biological parents or those who are standing local parenting, if not even biological parents, they are sort of living with, them as adults who are taking care of this case. The law mandates that once you become aware of this happening to your child, then you are required to report. And then it is not just those who are related like this, even those within the domestic circles. Under the Domestic Violence Act, it defines domestic relationships not only to mean those who are biologically related, but those who are closely knit together by their communal environments.
Okay.
So church setting, if we are all within the same environment, household setting, if we are all renting in the same house, then legal duty is cast on all of us. Here, the neighborhood principles work. Who is your neighbor? Anybody who is in need
the Bible,
of.
yes.
So for me, these are the people that we can say that they are required or mandated by law to report.
What about school teachers or principals of schools? Are
Now,
they involved in that?
They are also involved.
Mandated? Okay.
They are also involved. And teachers, they would actually be part of those who have information about the commission of the act.
Oh, okay.
If one way or the other, the news gets to the teacher, or the if you read the literature, you realize that when it comes to teacher-people relationship, some teachers are able to detect because teachers are able to know how their students behave. These are very intelligent students, but within this 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, these students begin to act funny, dull and as if. Then a duty for me, I will not say a duty, but it is actually an obligation for a teacher to probe into why the change in the demeanor and character and responses of their people, so that we can all investigate and then help these cases.
Oh, that's good. It's good to know
Yes.
that. Is there protection for them? Because in issues where people are powerful and influential and they get to know that you're the one who reported and now taken to court, is there protection for
Yes,
reporters?
there is protection under the law. In fact, before I even address the basic issue, under the Constitution of Ghana, in fact, every citizen has the right to protect the property of states.
Okay.
And every citizen of Ghana is a property of Ghana.
Okay.
So, by extension, every citizen of Ghana has the rights and equally an obligation to ensure that each citizen is actually protected under the law. So, if you carry out your constitutionally required mandate, then you cannot in any way, be denied of protection by the state itself. And here we talk about the police. So, if you rightly reported and there is any mayhem, there is any assault on you or any embarrassment, then you have the right to report to the police and you are protected under the Constitution. This apart, under the Domestic Violence Act once more, it provides mechanisms where those who lodge the complaints are protected.
Okay.
Now, they are protected in that the police are supposed to take the complaints. They are supposed to go to the ground, investigate children involved, investigate the neighbors. And if they get wind of the fact that there is any attempt or plotting or plan to cause any mayhem, then it is the police are equally mandated to take care of that.
Okay.
So, resulting from the reporting, if there is any other, offense or intention to carry out any offense, then the police are actually supposed to provide security.
Because some people are afraid to report and they think that I'm not protected, anything can happen to me. So I don't want to talk. I don't like locally when you live in community, say, I don't want trouble, please, I beg.
Yes, that is very true. In fact, if you look at the Cybersecurity Act, for instance, do you know that if you share nude pictures of a kid, of a child, of your own daughter, it's an offense?
Please repeat again.
So, under the Cybersecurity Act, you are not supposed to possess, produce, publish, transfer, or share any picture which is of, for want of a better word, which exposes,
It's like nude
nude
pictures.
pictures. So, you cannot possess it. You cannot share
Whether
it.
it's your child,
Yes,
you cannot.
yes,
Even your own child.
your own child.
Okay.
And I am bringing this in because if you share it, there is a mechanism that could be used to detect where the picture is coming from,
Originally.
so that it is not necessarily the one who reported, but there is a scientific method where they are able to detect the originating point of the picture,
Okay.
so that for purpose of educating the public, our system is now very dynamic for you to limit yourself to your neighbor by saying that he lodged a complaint. There is a way out.
There's a way out. Yeah.
The security authorities are well versed with technological, gadgets which are able to detect some of these things.
It's true. Yeah.
And we have cameras in town.
Yeah.
So we don't need a physical person to go and report. So there are ways of getting information without necessarily somebody reporting. So the public should be guided accordingly. We should not vent our anger on innocent neighbors
Yeah, just
alleging
because,
that they
yeah.
reported. Yeah,
And
there
even
could be
if you
other
do,
means.
the police will step in and
Exactly.
take measures to protect that person
Yes.
and deal with the issues. As we conclude, what do you want to tell our viewers in concluding this session with them?
Right. So I am happy that you are using this opportunity to reach the world, because the current statistics actually show that we are having a lot of this challenges in our country today, where we have people who are developing excessive and exclusive likeness for children. Um, Having the inclination to commit that offense is not crime per se. Yeah, like you having the inclination to sin. Without committing the sin, you've not sinned. So um, people who have the likeness, the inclination to have affair with children, if you are able to contain it, here I'm not addressing the scriptures. The scripture talks about you even having the intent, if you've committed. But in law, the intent, which is mens rea, is supposed to meet the act. So that if you have that perception, if you perceive it without carrying it out, it is not an offense.
Okay.
So we encourage people not to act on their feelings, to have actual affair with children. If you have that, penchant or inclination or propensity, then you need to seek assistance so that you'll be delivered from such a condition. But once you take the step of carrying it out, then under the Section 101 of the Criminal Offences Act, you could be convicted for 25 years imprisonment.
It doesn't matter your age.
It doesn't matter your age. And you could spend the rest of your life wallowing in prison.
If it's very severe.
Exactly. And this one is actually left with the discretion of the judge. The law puts, let's say, it should not be less than 5 years. It should not be more than 21 years or 25 years. So the question is, how many years would the judge convict you of? It is purely discretion. And if an old man like you sleep with a 2-year-old baby, I mean, a judge sitting in judgment would actually be provoked by the facts before him, and then exercise his discretion in convicting you for the maximum. And for me, we as lawyers will not be in support of this, in going for bail for some of these victims. So really, it is a challenge. But I will pray that the public will be educated with this education, and then ensure that you can have the idea but don't implement it. That is my number one advice. And then number two, those who are affected should seek both parties, both the victim and the offender. The victim should seek support, and the offender should equally seek psychological guidance, so that we will all get rid of this phenomenon in our communities.
Thank you so much. So viewers, we have to end here, but I want you to know that, as our lawyers explained to us, take advantage of this information, not only to create an awareness, but if you're a victim, there are means of seeking justice. And for those who are family members, please don't sacrifice the rights of your child for your protection or for temporary needs, because the impact can be long lasting. This is Sex in the Temple, and my name is Monique.